So do you want your car's engine to last forever? Well, it's realistic to expect that your engine is not going to last forever. But to a lot of people, they want to hang on to their car as long as they possibly can. And the only real motivation to selling the car and trading up to a newer model is because it's become unreliable. It started to break down, or it started to run up repair bills and costs. So in this video, we're just going to look at some of the things that you can do as a car owner to prolong the lifespan and the reliability of your cars. So we're going to look at a few areas of keeping your car as an everlasting car or an eternal engine, and it really involves maintenance, particularly oil changes. So there's a few things that we need to look at when it comes to maintaining our car. We're also going to look at cold starts and other things that you as a driver can do just to develop your mechanical sympathy to ensure that your engine lasts a lot longer. So first up, we have servicing. Now, every manufacturer specifies a service interval on the car. So in some cases, that may be 6 months, it may be 9 months, it might be 12, it could even be 24 months. We see a lot of manufacturers recommending a long life service schedule. Within the service regime, there's often inspection services and oil services. So the oil service is literally just a change of oil and a quick once over. The inspection service is a little more involved and involves changing the other filters in the engine and inspecting more components to make sure everything is running smoothly. And it's not just a matter of servicing the car and changing the oil. You need to be using the correct grade of oil, but also an oil that has the correct additive package. If you get that wrong in some of these modern engines, you can cause all sorts of problems. So I've got lots of videos that go more in depth into oil, the additives and the types of oil that you should be using. There's oils for high mileage engines, there's turbocharged formulations. So most of the manufacturers, Volkswagen, Ford, Nissan, Honda, they all have their own specific formulations, and going outside of those will often have knock-on effects on other components. So typically your catalyst, your particulate filter, the general protection inside the engine, the wear and tear, the corrosion resistance will all be affected. So manufacturers have selected oils very, very specifically depending on how the engine has been constructed, the materials that have been used and the way the engine works. So it'd be foolish to just go out and buy a cheap oil thinking that that will keep the car in good condition. And all the other fluids that we put in the car, the coolant, even the brake fluid, everything the car uses needs to be correct for the specific car that you have. Otherwise, you are going to potentially run up repair bills due to accelerated deterioration of these components. Now, most people that have had oil analysis done have concluded that the manufacturer's oil change statistics or recommendations are very, very optimistic. In most cases where you're doing short journeys, you're abusing the engine, you're just using the car, the oil has become contaminated. It's started to pick up a lot of wear metals, which is an indicator of wear going on inside the engine. So the recommendation then really is to change the oil more frequently. So it's very hard for someone like me to just say you should change your oil every 3,000 miles because there's so many different engines out there and we all use our cars completely differently. So depending on the use of your car will have a bearing on how quickly the oil you have in there degrades, whether the engine design itself lends itself to the problem of oil dilution. We've done a video on that problem recently, and there's lots of other things to take into account. So sending your oil off for analysis really is the best way of telling, but most people don't want to do that. We just want an indicator or a suggestion to keep our car reliable. So in most cases, we would halve the manufacturer's recommendations. That would be perceived as cautious by most people. It's unlikely to see problems developing in the engine oil if you've halved the manufacturer's service schedules. So if they're saying 12 months, 12,000 miles, you shorten that to 6 months, 6,000 miles. So I think though for most of us, we want to be somewhere between the two. So we want to be between 6,000 and 12,000 if the manufacturer specifies 12,000 miles. The key really to long engine life is changing the oil. If that oil has started to degrade, if it's built up wear metals from the engine itself, it's going to lead to faster degradation of your engine and greater wear and tear over time. So the next thing that we should be doing as a driver is having a little bit of mechanical sympathy with our engine. So when the engine is cold, if we use it too hard, it's going to cause problems in the lifespan of the car. The metal components inside, the ductility, the elasticity, the pistons, the clearances inside haven't reached what the manufacturer set. So we're going to have problems with blow-by, poor lubrication. Piston slap is also a risk on cold engines. And an engine, when it's cold, if you put a lot of stress into it, it's going to accelerate the wear and tear on the engine. So observing a proper warm-up routine, I'm not going to go into too much detail here as to what a proper warm-up routine is, because I've done other videos on it. So if that's something that you're curious about, check out those other videos. They're based on a vast pool of knowledge that I've tapped into, people I've spoken to, my own experiences in the trade and using cars myself over the years. So as well as that little warm-up cycle, we should allow the engine to cool down. So in most cases, it's good to just allow the engine to cool down a little bit toward the end of our journey. So if we were on a highway, freeway, motorway, autobahn, whatever we want to call these fast roads, we may just want to get the speed down to use a higher gear for the last part of the journey to just give the engine a chance to properly cool down. And that avoids the big temperature, the big fast temperature differentials that happen when a very hot engine is suddenly shut off. So modern engine designs have come on a long way. The manufacturers have taken into account the abuse that the typical driver gives them, but we can do a little bit to extend the engine life of our precious motor. So another thing we should do is drive sympathetically. If we're using a manual, in the UK, there's still about 70% of cars on the road at the moment that have a manual transmission. Use the right gear. We want to avoid lugging the engine, putting a big load on the engine at very, very low RPM figures. We also want to avoid excessive stress in the engine. So we want to avoid high RPM driving all the time. The key really is to just vary it, vary the rev range that you use as you drive the car, and just make sure the engine is used as the manufacturer intended. Don't fall into the trap of thinking that low RPM equals better fuel economy, because most cars have a point in the RPM range which gives you the best fuel economy, and that's generally not at the lowest point. You need to choose an appropriate gear, and appropriate gear takes into account the load. If you're going uphill, if you're towing, if you're trying to accelerate, you'll need a different gear to if you were on the flat just maintaining a steady constant speed. So the last thing we want to do is just be conscious of potential problems as they develop. The earlier we can get to a problem, the less chance it has to escalate into a big problem. So check out noises, smells, fluids coming from the engine underneath the car. Anything out of the ordinary can indicate you've got a potential problem. So you want to jump on that quite quickly. If you've noticed unusual power surges or blips, or you're getting intermittent running, flat spots when you accelerate, it's time to pull out the diagnostic tool, plug it into your OBD2 port, read off the error codes and just see what is going on inside the engine. And spotting these problems early on really does ensure that your engine is reliable. It's less likely to let you down if you've identified a weak spot and replaced it before that part has actually failed on you. So if you found this video useful, please boot that like button. That really does help us to get out there. If you've not subscribed to the channel yet, please do so. I'd hate you to miss out on all the great content we've got coming up to help you to get the best out of your car and maintain its long-term reliability. And I've lined this video up for you that you should find really interesting if you want to get the best out of your car. Thanks for watching. See you in this next video.